Back home now and returning to that big news, the climate bill enshrining a 43% emissions reduction target by 2030 has passed through the lower house. It now is sent off, of course, to the Senate. Let's bring in live now the Green Senator Barbara Pocock. Senator, really appreciate your time. Thank you. This is a big moment for the Albanese government. Do you think the climate wars are really going to be over, as the Prime Minister's been hoping?
Well, we know that 43% is a first step, but all the scientists, the UN, our Pacific neighbours tell us we need to go further. So yeah, a first step, but we need to really pay attention to things that could really undermine its achievement. Things like more coal and gas opening up in our country, which really would have a very detrimental effect on this target. But yes, we in the Greens have worked very hard to amend the legislation to make sure that it's a meaningful floor, that no one can get under it, and to make sure that we can ratchet it up over time. We know it needs to be higher, and we know we need to do some other things too. We have to stop subsidising coal and gas in our public budget. We don't want to put our money into fuelling the climate crisis through new coal and gas. And we need to make sure that all the arms of government, things like the Export Financing Authority, are really turning their attention and required to do the work that will help us meet this target and do better.
So, Senator, considering those views you just put forward, are you actually comfortable with the position the Greens landed on when it comes to that climate bill? There must be some disappointment within the Greens and among your supporters that the party didn't negotiate harder, didn't hold out for longer to get that more ambitious result.
Well, we've worked very hard and we have come to a consensus, and it is a consensus amongst all of us here, our larger number of senators, 12 of us, and our lower house new members as well. So we've had a lot of discussion. And we're like the Australian community. We want to see better. It's for the planet and our country that we need to see achievement of reducing carbon in our atmosphere, reducing pollution. It's vital to keep us all safe. So yes, we need to go further and faster, but with our consensus view that with our improvements and amendments, which we are really glad to have achieved, we don't want to see, and we are not seeing now in this what's just been passed, something which could be undermined by future governments. And we can see the possibility of ratcheting that target up to the levels that it needs to be. But we now need to turn our attention to making sure that we don't do new coal and gas, which would undermine its achievement, and turn to the budget, how we spend our money, and how we pull all those other levers that exist in our government to make the changes that we need to move forward in the right way towards a meaningful target that we really achieve.
So in terms of the amendments we have seen go through the lower house this morning, what do you see as the most significant in terms of the changes to the government's bill?
Well, I think it's really important that over time we can increase our achievement well beyond 43%. The scientists are very unified on the question that we need to go considerably harder and higher than 43%. They talk 75%, and that's what we know we need. So we need to make sure that what was being implemented and has now been passed this morning isn't a ceiling. So it's not. We can go upwards from 43%, and we need to do that quickly. We also need to make sure that any future government cannot go lower. So it's now a Dutton-proofed bill, and we need to also make sure that the machinery of government recognises this target and turns its attention and all of the actions that it takes towards achieving them, so that in the authorities like the Export Financing Authority, we're really turning our attention to what needs to happen in the way we finance things, and that we keep public funds out of supporting new coal and gas, which, as Adam Bandt has said many times, is like pouring petrol onto the fire rather than putting it out.
We're hearing a lot from the coalition at the moment about keeping nuclear on the table as an option. They're arguing it's safe, efficient, clean. What is your view on that? I know you've been keeping a really close eye on the legal battle over the nuclear waste storage facility in South Australia. Where do you land on nuclear in terms of looking at the economics of that and whether it stacks up?
I think the evidence and the story about that, as an economist, I can say the economics don't stack up at present. The technology's not there. But most importantly, you mentioned nuclear waste. We don't have a place actually anywhere on the planet for safe, long-term disposal of high-level nuclear waste. And in South Australia, we're having, quite a vigorous debate about how we dispose of low-level and intermediate-level waste. And, you know, until we have a solution for disposing of the products that arise from any form of nuclear activity, then we really don't have a sustainable system of working with nuclear products. We certainly don't have a solution on the power front, the energy front through nuclear. But we also need to make sure that we dispose of our own low-level, intermediate-level waste in ways that don't trample on the rights, for example, of First Nations people. The Bangala people in South Australia are at the moment in the federal court fighting for a say over the placement of a waste that actually has to be managed for 10,000 years on their land, and they are opposed to that at present, and most South Australians haven't had a say. So a lot of complexity in the nuclear issue, and we need to make sure that our community is fully informed and we have safe solutions for all aspects of the industry, including the transport of waste and its disposal.
Senator Pocock, really appreciate you making the time to speak with us on what is a huge day there in Parliament. Thanks so much.
Great to be here. Thank you.